Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Shifts and Bucks podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Bucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Bucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Bucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. No intro. When I fly solo with the producing Matt, it's a little hard to juggle all of the things. But Matt DeBorg, Fireside
No.
Chat, joining us this afternoon. How are you doing?
Good. I just want to say thank you for coming and joining us the last couple of weeks after my dental surgery. I was grateful that you were able to come aboard and help fill in. Means a lot.
Well, hey, you guys helped me in a pinch too, so I feel like we've developed a pretty good. I think you guys always come and help me out and join me for conversations. So I always enjoy the conversations on your end. So yeah, glad you're feeling a little bit better, at least in terms of physical part. But I know, are you over your depression over the Blue Jays? I should ask you this.
Well, it is what it is. It certainly felt like the Jays kind of were trying too hard, and they had so many opportunities to win it where, if one bounce went their way in either game 6 or 7, they probably are World Series champions. It didn't go their way. I don't know if they'll be back next year. I doubt it. So it is disappointing, but not much you can do.
No, I mean when you go to extra innings, it can go either way. Yeah, like an inch here. I mean, it literally was Will Smith putting his foot back on that plate that partially saved it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was literally that. So yeah, it was a phenomenal World Series. It was really compelling, and yeah,
Honestly, from a viewer's perspective, yes, I'm biased because I'm a Jays fan, but just in terms of the quality of play, like this was one of the best World Series in like the last 20 years. Because like both teams, like it was a total slugfest. Each team gave it their all. There was no easy victories for either team, and like even the blowout win in Game 1, like it was tied going into the 7th. So yeah, like it's one of those where a few bounces either way, like it could have been a sweep for either team. It just it was an entertaining series
for sure. And I think there was a lot of people that came into this series that thought the Dodgers would sweep. I was not one of them. I thought the Dodgers would win, but I didn't think the Dodgers would sweep. And I think,
to be honest, I thought the Dodgers would win too. I actually am surprised that it went to Game 7 and that the Jays had an opportunity twice to actually win it. I thought it was going to be a 5 or 6 game series, so I was very impressed with how the Jays did, but just came up that a little bit short.
Yeah.
Well, certainly some 04 Flames vibes from that series.
Yeah, you kind of look back, because I was just thinking about, like, everyone was talking about heartbreaking losses. You look at back, one of the better wins in Flames history that nobody talks about was that Game 5 overtime win when Oleg Freakin scores in overtime, and you just you felt the city was about to just burst. Calgary was just going to burst, but it unfortunately didn't happen. It was in, but that's and then Jordan Leopold at the last second, Nikolai Habibulin makes a big save. So that's what it comes down to sometimes.
Yep. One break here or there.
Yeah. Well, the Flames, I guess you could argue in some ways some players are not getting breaks. But it was a road trip that became quite a controversial road trip. They go 1-2-1 on this road trip. 2 regulation losses to Toronto, 4-3. For that Toronto loss was in the last moments there when the Leafs score with a couple minutes to go, just after Sam Honzek scores his first ever NHL goal and ties the game at 3. An unfortunate misplay by Mackenzie Weegar. Was it Mackenzie Weegar in that one, or wait? Am I getting? That was the Ottawa one, but a last-minute goal by Toronto. Matthew Nye scores. Toronto wins that one. The Ottawa Senators and Calgary Flames go to a shootout, and the Senators end up winning that one 4-3. The Nashville Predators jump out to a 3-0 lead in the early first part of the game. And in first period, Devin Cooley replaces Dustin Wolf in the second and third period. Quite frankly, does a hell of a job and wins. The Predators do win 4-2 as the Flames do get 2 late goals to make it 3-2, and the Preds put one in the empty net. And probably in one of the more boring games of the year, the Calgary Flames beat the twin brother. They kind of remind me, they're sort of the same teams kind of right now. The Flames beat the Flyers 2-1 to wrap up the road trip with a win. So what is your overall takeaway from this road trip?
Well, it's interesting to see the difference the year makes, because if the Flames were playing exactly how they were last year, they probably win all 4 games. The last minute, late comebacks that after grinding the other teams down in each of the games, like we even saw that in the Nashville game where they're down 3-0 and got to within a goal. Last year, they would have found that extra goal and got the extra 2 points. And, just the slight regression from all the older guys. It's not much, but it's enough to change those comeback wins into regulation losses. And that's the difference between the Flames being near a playoff spot right now and being the last place team in the league.
Yeah. It's a lot of confidence too. I think there's a lot of players that I feel are just fighting the puck a little bit. And I kind of look back at the Philly game, and in particular, a player that I noticed just was playing frustrated. Like, he had a really good game, don't get me wrong, but Mackenzie Weegar you can just feel the anger coming. For me, anyway, I noticed the anger coming out of the pores of his play right now. He's completely frustrated with the results that the Flames are having right now. I kind of noticed that with Dustin Wolf a little bit too. I would not have wanted to be Jake Bean or Braden Pahal at the Nashville game, because his glare probably would have killed them.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing a lot of the core pieces of this Flames team feeling a little bit of frustration. I think that win in Philly, it wasn't pretty in any way, shape, or form, but you could kind of just see this lift a little bit. I do think what would help is if they can get 2 wins in a row. I think it would build this confidence of this team a little bit if they could put on a winning streak. Now, I'm not saying that this winning streak will lead them to the playoffs in any way, Matt, but I do think that there has to be a better sort of vibe in that dressing room as you're going forward. I mean, it's like if you're betting on the Flames to make the playoffs and they end up making the playoffs, you're going to make a hell of a lot of money, but I'm not encouraging you to gamble.
No.
But like, you're just the team as they're going forward, they have to start feeling you do need your good players to feel a little bit better than they are right now.
Yeah, and you can see that level of frustration where, like, a year ago, those bounces were going their way, and like they were able to find those late third period comebacks on a regular basis. And when it rains, it pours. Like, they had a tough schedule to start the year. They struggled to start the year. Mackenzie Weegar also struggled at the beginning of last year, but was able to rebound around this time last year. And like in the Flyers game, I thought he was the best player outside of the goalie in the game, with so many block shots and getting into shooting lanes. It's just one of those things where sometimes things can just spiral a little bit longer than even the play would dictate. Like, I feel that, like, over the last 6 or 7 games, that the Flames have actually been pretty much on par with the other team. It's just, not quite getting the bounce that they would normally as of last year.
Yeah, for sure. And they do have it, although again they have an easier schedule right now. They're going through they went through a gauntlet in October, and it gets easier, and we'll get into that a little bit better. I mean, it's still, you can even see though with the Flyers, it's just it isn't partially like the confidence, but I mean, I think last year the talent just isn't there, right? And I think everybody knows that. I think
Yeah.
like if you're a Flames fan and you're watching this team, you're aware that the talent isn't quite there, and we're in the midst of, they're not going to make it doesn't feel like they're going to make the playoffs. It feels like they're going to be in the bottom of the league. And I think it just redirects a lot of the questions that going to happen this year. I mean, I didn't put this on the agenda, but I am very curious how Dustin Wolf is going to handle this. He's not had a year where he's completely struggled or missed the playoffs. This guy has had and has found success throughout his entire hockey career. This will be a challenge for him this year.
Yeah. Well, and like Calgary, like right now, like they basically have a second line, 2 third lines, and a fourth line, and their defense is just slightly below average.
Yeah,
it's hard to get results to be on the top end of the league when you have significant deficiencies in your lineup, and it's tough for everybody. Like the pressure on guys like Huberdeau and Kadri to always be the guy when realistically they should be on the second line. And facing like the second pairing defenseman to generate offense, it just makes everything harder for every player. And it's not like the Flames have a lot of good young players that are imminently in the lineup pushing to be like the next 20, 30 goal guy. So it's hard to find those goals. And last year they were so successful via the hard work, hitting constantly, fighting for every inch of space, and just tiring out their opponents by the time the third period came around. This year, like, we're seeing the team being a lot more passive, not engaging physically, taking significantly more penalties. Just basically the right-wrong mix that this team needs to be successful.
I have to look this up, but they've taken a number of penalties. Not only Dan mentioned this with you guys, not only with the Flames on the power play, but I swear it's been more offensive zone penalties than defensive zone penalties.
Yeah, just lots of careless things that would make Huska tear out the last of his hair.
Yeah,
and it's one of those where like even just fundamentals seem to be lacking in terms of like on ice concentration.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm the guys that are, I think, the 4 guys that I do think the Flames need to make sure are going forward are kind of the staple of this team, are the ones that I feel have been the most inconsistent. And I know there's been a lot of discussion around 2 of them, so we'll get into them. But I think Morgan Frost has been inconsistent this year. I don't think Matt Coronado has even. I think Matt Coronado has been consistent, but I think he's completely struggled this year. Connor Zary in and out of the lineup, and Igor Sharangovich in and out of the lineup, and with different lines, and now playing center. Those 4 in particular, I feel they're the 4 forwards that I'm in terms of where this team is going, that I'm going to be intrigued by. I mean, we know that Matt Coronado will be around for a while. I think he's going through growing pains in terms of a new contract, new pressure, new ideas. And he got healthy scratched in the Rangers game. We go back, he played 4th line in the Toronto game. He had played 2 minutes after the first period. And then he scores against Ottawa, but I Yeah, I don't feel he's been completely consistent, to be honest with you. And I know a lot of people have been talking online about him getting scratched and how Ryan Huska is not developing Matt Coronado. I have to push back on this, Matt. I don't think Matt Coronado has been good enough, and I know that people.
No, he's reminding me of his first season in the NHL play, where he's not quite in the spots he needs to take shots. He's not skating as hard to get into the hard areas. And that's part of the reason why he was so successful, was he was making those hard plays. And he's just that half step back like he was in his rookie year. And like when he got sent down to the AHL, he tore it up because that league's just a little easier, and you can be that little bit off and be fine. The NHL, you need to either get to those areas, or you're gonna struggle, and it's just the right combination of things. And it's a difference from last year where he was making those extra efforts, and we're not seeing that this year thus far.
Not yet, no. And I think there's a learning curve. I do like, and that's part of it. I've always like when I watch Matt Coronado, I see a lot of Brock Besser. Maybe because I watch the Flames and Canucks of this with the same similarities, but I see a lot of this very similar. Great shot, not the best skater, but always finds a way to get to the spot that he needs to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, he just hasn't been quite consistent enough, and I kind of I know that people are like he's a young player and you got to give him the time, but I think on the other side of this is Ryan Huska needs to establish a standard, what he expects players to play, and we don't know what's going on in terms of the off ice expectations or what's going on there, and I know that so, but I don't know, I think Coronado, I think it's hard not to look at Matt Coronado and say that he has not been good enough yet for this year for the Flames. Like it's
and it's one of those where, frankly, like him like sitting in the press box against the Rangers, like that's a good thing, because he needs to be able to look and see how players are creating that space on the ice that he needs in order to generate the offense that he needs to. And sometimes removing yourself from the on ice to the off ice and getting that overhead view to know that, okay, I have to go to here instead of over here. It might be a difference of like 2 feet, but that might be just the difference that results from a shot that the goalie can easily stop versus another goal that can help the team win. And having those time periods with young players to get them to take a night off and watch is beneficial for both sides.
Yep, I agree. I agree. I don't think this should be happening all the time. This should not be
No,
a consistent thing, but I do understand where Ryan Huska is coming from on this. And I don't think on this team at this point in time, and even as you are rebuilding, one of the things that you cannot have happen, and this happened with the Oilers in rebuild 1.0, there was a lot of players that were a number one pick that they thought that they were the stars of the show, and it ended up being that they became a lot of prima donnas. And you can't have that when you're in a rebuilding situation. You need to
no.
have players. You need to have, even if you're losing, even if you're struggling, you need to have a standard that is set.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Morgan Frost has had moments with Kadri and Huberdeau, but I also don't think he's been truly. He's had flashes this year.
Yeah, and that frankly was Morgan Frost as a Philadelphia Flyer. Like there would be games where it's like, oh, future, number one center, and then 8 games go by, and then yeah, he still can do things. So it he's very up and down.
Yeah. Connor Zary, we've had these discussions. He continues to be up and down. I'm higher on both him than both of you two. You two are, but he hasn't been.
Yeah, his skill level is still there. It's just since the first injury last January, he has not been the same player, and you kind of need to just wait and see if the old Zari will return, and if it doesn't, then a marginal fourth line player is what he is playing like, and not much you can do with that.
Do you think with Zary that you need to decide if he's a center or a winger at this point, or do you fluctuate him in between both depending on what the lineup is like?
Honestly, having that flexibility might as well. And like Sharon Govich too. Like he can play all three positions. I'm sure Zari could play all three positions. Whenever the team is struggling to find any cohesiveness, it's good to have those options available, so that way you can just try to shuffle the chairs around to see if you can get something to work.
Yeah. And I think that's been one of Ryan Huska's challenges, unfortunately, is he can rely on Kadri and Huberdeau as a pair. He can rely on Backlund and Coleman as a pair. And he can kind of rely, I know people are going to, there's some people are not going to like this, but he relies on Lomberg and Klapka as a pair, and he does the job that they need to do. It doesn't need.
I agree.
And the problem is around that mushy middle, the Zaries, the Sharon Goviches, the Coronados, the Frosts, it's finding places for them to be consistent. I mean, Joel Farabee has been consistent no matter where you play him. I think
it's actually been the Flames' best forward thus far this year in terms of consistent effort. Every time he's on the ice, he's doing the exact same job.
Yeah. I think also that he needs to repent to whatever god that has cursed him.
Yeah, the curse of Tony Amonte.
Yeah,
I remember that year where he had like 40 posts in that season.
Mm-hmm.
And it just he gets all sorts of scoring chances, and either the goalie robs him or he hits the post, and it's like, really? After a while, like after like the 10th one, it's like, come on, one of these has to go in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's the forward part. The blue line part is the attention and the conversation is around Zayne Parekh. And on Saturday, there was a tweet from Eric Francis that basically said that the Flames were discussing what to do with Zayne Parekh. Would they send him down to junior after the 10th game? Now, he did play his 10th game on Sunday in Philadelphia. So he basically what happens now is the first year of his contract is he's basically on his NHL contract. Now he can still go back to junior. That still is an option at this point. If he is scratched for 5 consecutive games, he can go down to the AHL for a rehabilitation stint. He still has the eligibility, and there's still a possibility of the World Juniors, which I kind of think is more of a probability than a possibility as I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, especially if the Flames are in the same, like bottom 5 come December, I would lean more that he would go.
Yeah. Now, the word I think that people got caught up on in Eric Francis's tweet was the word that Zayne Parekh has struggled. And the Zayne Parekh supporters are disagreeing with that statement. They do not think he's struggled. And there's some that have put some analytic numbers to prove that he has not struggled. Matt, what say you? Has Zayne Parekh?
I think that he needs to put on about 15 pounds of muscle in the off season so it doesn't get pushed around quite as easily. But like honestly, thus far he's reminding me a little bit of TJ Brody's first season in the NHL, But he's a lot less lost in the defensive zone than Brody was in his first year. It takes a while for young defensemen to adjust to the NHL. And like Brody in his first season, I think he was 22 at that time versus 19. And it's a big step up to go from the OHL to the NHL. And he is too skinny. But skill wise, he's there ish. It's lack of experience and lack of muscle that's holding him back. I think he needs to grow into a bigger role. Them shifting him to the first power play unit is a good idea. And later in the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets paired with Mackenzie Weegar, like around the 30-40 game mark. But I can understand where people feel like he's struggling because of like all the expectations of like, oh, he's gonna be like an instant 50-point defenseman, and it's like the only guy that's done that recently is Cale Makar, and it's hard as a rookie teenager to come in and dominate like that, and we'll see. I don't would I grade him high? No, but I feel like he's a solid B- thus far for his season, and there's still that upside, and you just kind of have to be patient and let him grow.
I wonder if the better word here is not struggling, but learning. And it's learning what his body is supposed to do in the National Hockey League level, learning how his skating style needs to adapt to the National Hockey League level. Like Matt, I think we're going to have some games on Hockey Night in Canada. The second half of the doubleheader that Kevin BX is going to be talk about a hit in the intermission that says he needs to keep his head up. That's one thing that I have been very concerned about with him since I've seen him, is that his skating style, I'm concerned, is going to cause him to get wrecked. And that's already happened with Colton Sissons. He that's also already starting to happen a little bit.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why, like I was saying, that in the off season he needs to focus on bulking up physically. Just because you need to be able to withstand normal body checks, and his skating style, as you said, puts him in a little bit of a bad spot at times, and it's just tough. And even for forwards, it's tough being a teenager in the NHL, and only the best of the best get to make the league before they hit 20, and it's tough. I remember when Jack Hughes struggled when he first entered the NHL, and he's like, well, a couple of months ago I was playing in high school, and now I'm lining up against Sidney Crosby. What do you expect from me? And it is what it is. He's used to playing against kids that are 165 to 185 pounds, and now he's going up against 210, 220 pound physical guys. It's a different beast entirely, and there's only so much you can adapt so quickly.
I think one of the things that I think will help him, and I think it happened with today, the calling up of Yan Kuznetsov, I think is going to be a major help for Zayne Parekh. I think that the other struggle is he's playing third pair defensive minutes, which is not going to be what Zayne Parekh is going to play when he becomes a regular National Hockey Leaguer. And I don't think he has his partner. I don't think Braden Pahal is his partner, and I think God bless Braden Pahal for playing the other side, but I don't think it's working. And I think is it safe to say that we're seeing sort of the end of Jake Bean in Calgary Flames colors, and we're probably going to start seeing Jake Bean in Calgary Wrangler colors? Are we close to that?
Possibly. It depends on how long things stretch out. They might just hold him as the 6-7 guy and then trade him at the trade deadline. because teams are always wanting good depth defensemen, and like if you need a number 7 to slot in, Bean is perfectly good for that. And getting like a 5th or 6th round pick for him is good asset management. So, might as well have him kick around, but I don't see him playing a ton between now and at least not regular minutes between now and the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think that if you can start, and I wish this was it with the Wranglers, honestly, but Parekh and Kuznetsov seem like a pair that could be a pair for a while with this Flames team. And I hope that we start to see that a little bit more. Like I think that will be good for both of them. It's just I think that's the other part is Parekh. Like one of the reasons that I think Hale Makar is so good is what Devon Toews does for him. Even Evan Bouchard, I think Evan Bouchard is allowed to do some of the things that he's able to do because of the way Matthias Ekholm has played. So he needs it. He kind of also eventually, and it's early, but getting a partner for Zayne Parekh will help him as well.
Yeah. So and like realistically, like a guy like Chris Tanev, to harken back to when he was here, like that archetype of a defenseman is what Parekh needs. That solid, steady, stay-at-home guy that will basically cover his butt whenever he goes up into the offensive zone and does what Zayne Parekh does best.
Yeah. And like you can't like I think the other thing with Zayne too is, and you saw kind of like he said during the first intermission, you kind of saw the picture of the frustrated face after Christian Dvorak stripped him of the puck and went in all alone. I think he's trying defensively. I think it's very clear he's trying defensively, but I don't think anybody in Calgary is expecting him to be Chris Tanev or Rasmus Anderson or this really elite defensive defenseman. They just want him to be Zayne Parekh, and I think he's just trying to find his footing. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, yeah, if he can be an average defenseman or better, and still be what he can do on the offensive side of things, like he'll be a star player. It's just learning that right balance, and frankly, it takes a while. Like it took TJ Brody half a year easily before it looked like he actually knew what to do in the defensive zone at all. And then he emerged as a number 1 pairing defenseman, and it takes time. It usually takes defensemen about 200 games in the NHL to really cement themselves in as like quality defenders. And he's 10 games into his career. Like there's not really a much there yet, and it just takes time.
Yeah. And with regard to the conversation of him going back to junior and people overreacting to that, which I feel that generally everybody does.
Oh yeah.
You have to have you need to have someone in that organization to at least put this option on the table, and it at least has to be discussed. I'm not saying that you do it. It's not about doing it, but it is about, okay, let's look at this option for Zayne Parekh as opposed to like you have to look at the best options for him. Again, I've said this. I mean, ultimately, I went with the OHL because I thought that this would be a better option than him playing third pairing minutes. But ultimately, I mean, yes, he's overqualified for the OHL, but I just don't think he's in the best position for Zayne Parekh right now in where he should be in the AHL.
Yeah. And like, frankly, what I would kind of expect based off of his play thus far is keep playing him until roughly Christmas time. Let him go to the World Juniors, and like if he doesn't pick it up from here till then send him back to juniors after the World Junior Championship, just to go have a good playoff run in the OHL, and which is perfectly fine. Like plenty of teams have done that with young players before. If Parekh gets better and is looking more like a top 4 defenseman by Christmas, then obviously you keep him and have him back after, or you don't let him go at all. But just a lot of things to watch for him between now and Christmas.
Yeah, for sure. Let's touch on the goaltending. I think Dustin Wolf is playing as well as he could possibly play, but um, I guess the big surprise this year has been Devin Cooley. I mean, after that 8-1 preseason blowout to the Vancouver Canucks, I think all of us were deathly afraid of what was going to happen in the backup position.
Yeah.
And Devin Cooley so far has locked that up. Now, I don't think he's been quite Vladar, but I think that this is a completely different situation where I think you're wanting Dustin Wolf to take a step closer to the number 1 position as opposed to the 1A, 1B that they started with Wolf and Vladar last year. Devin Cooley is doing a perfect job as a backup. And I think that he has the perfect demeanor for it. And let's ride this for now and see where it goes.
Yeah, and goalies are weird, and like I mentioned this on my show, that you look at Anthony Stolarz and Aiden Hill, like they bounced around the league a bit and were never really given a shot until they were 28 or older, and then they were given an opportunity and ran with it. And to this point this year, Cooley has been amazing. Whenever your backup's throwing a 933 save percentage, it turns some heads and like, what? Doesn't matter what team, that backup's playing with. And I feel that like he deserves to have a few more starts than he normally would, but like basically like a 50-30 split with Wolf from this point forward, where give Wolf some time off. And like Wolf has not been used to basically playing every other day like he has thus far this year. And like with the schedule being a very much more condensed than normal, it also makes more sense to have Cooley start. And if he continues to put up good numbers, you might as well ride that wave and see how far it goes.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Let's ride that and see. Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself. 2 other players I wanted to touch on here. As much as everyone has been arguing about the Flames aren't playing the young guys, the Flames aren't playing the young guys. Lo and behold, who has been consistently playing? Who's played who's played every game, I think, this year except one? Is Sam Honzek. I think this guy has been quietly ignored, but I think he might be. I think you've said Farabee has been the best forward. I think Honzek has been the most underrated forward. I think he's perfect with Backlund and Holman. That line should not split up. I think Honzek
never.
No, I think he's the perfect winger for them. I think you can find. Yeah, I'm really been impressed with Sam Honzek. I think he's not going to be a superstar in the National Hockey League. I don't think anyone expected that when he was drafted, but he's a guy that can do the Backlund Coleman work. When Backlund and Coleman are gone, you've got that guy. And
exactly. And like that's why like I'm not really concerned with like how prospects develop. If they're in the NHL and contributing, regardless of whatever spot they are in the lineup, and they're doing that role effectively, it's all good. And Honzek, looks to be a future second, third line, 2-way winger, who, can probably chip in 40 points while being like your number 1 PK guy. And that it, for a team that's trying to build the Stanley Cup team eventually, that guy is very freaking important to that team.
Yeah.
And, having him learn from 2 of the best at it, perfect spot for Honzek.
Yeah. And then so far 2 points in 17 or 2 points in 12 games, and so he has not played every game, but he's close enough, and
Close enough.
he's averaging 20 shifts a game, or between 15 and 20 shifts a game. So about 11 to 14 minutes, and he's doing his job. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Nazem Kadri plays his 1,000th game in the National Hockey League. I think this year has been very interesting with Nazem Kadri because there's been some trade scuttlebutt around Nazem Kadri. But I think I don't want to focus on the trade stuff with Nazem Kadri. The fact that he got to 1,000 games is a major accomplishment that deserves to be celebrated. I remember. Do you remember the game? This was back. I want to say this was 2017. This was the year before they traded Kadri to Colorado, but it was the Leafs and the Flames, and Nazem Kadri did that throat gesture.
Yeah, I was in the dome for that game. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and there was just this it really looked like a guy that a lot of people were starting to sour on because he just didn't feel like he was a mature player. There was a lot of concerns around Nazem Kadri at the early part of his career, and he's turned into a consummate professional. Like, he wins the cup in Colorado. He's been through a lot. If you remember that Colorado St. Louis series and what was said about him from some fans, I won't repeat it, but you can look that up. And I think he's been a constant on this Flames lineup. I mean, you look at what he has done for Zary and Pospisil. Him and Huberdeau at first didn't work, but him and Huberdeau are inseparable. They found a way to make that work. I think all the credit in the world for Nazem Kadri to getting to 1,000 games. I think that this is something that should be celebrated. And I don't know how you feel, but that's how I feel about Nazem Kadri.
Oh, same here. Like in the early part of his career, he was basically thought of as like an even more hot-headed Brad Marchand. And like the best way to get him off his game was to just basically poke the bear, and like it would completely derail Kadri's efforts. And like in the playoffs especially, there was so many times where Kadri would lose his cool and would get suspended. And it took him getting traded to Colorado and realized that, hey, I need to put, some emphasis on not being as reckless with his emotions. And, it changed how he approached the game. And he is a completely different player from that point on, and more of a contributor in a lot of the ways that like guys on the Florida Panthers contribute, where they walk that line, but they're on the right side of it most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's learned how to toe the line and not cross it. He's learned how to be smart. Like he will, he creates penalties. That's the best way to say it. I think if we were a fan of another team, we would probably use the word dive or other words, but he creates penalties. He's still playing really well. He really is.
And like that's part of why, like especially with the Flames being in the spot that they are, that like the trade talk has come up, is because frankly in the trade market there is one guy exactly that fits any of the parameters that Kadri does. And you can pretty much peg him as a second line center on most teams in the NHL, save for like 3. And, he has that same attitude that like guys that Florida did that made them successful. So, if Calgary was playing better, like, everybody would just be talking about what a great leader he's turned into. Now that they're not, it's like, hey, now you have a laundry list of teams lining up saying, we would like to add that leader to our team because Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of teams that are lining up for him, Matt, but I just don't think that you're going to get what you think that you are from Kadri. You still got 3 years at 7 million. He's still 35 years old.
Yeah, I'm
He,
looking at basically the return that Brock Nelson got from the New York Islanders as more or less because in terms of production, they're basically the same guy. With Kadri getting the intangibles a little bit his way versus Nelson, so I'm expecting in that ballpark. It might be a little bit more, it might be a little less, depending on because every year's market's different, but.
I see. I kind of think it's the Noah Hannafin package. I think
And
it's
I think that's like the minimum, and like the maximum is like basically the Nelson plus maybe a little bit, but it'll probably be somewhere in the middle of those two ranges.
yeah. I think at some point we should discuss if Jonathan Huberdeau starts to have a little bit of value. We won't do this for this one, but I think it's some.
Well, actually, I do want to mention that I brought up the idea of like a team like New Jersey who has like Andre Palat, who's making like nearly $6 million, and it's basically a dead cap hit.
Yeah.
You could make a maneuver to trade Huberdeau if you took on like that contract, and you know probably we'd have to eat some of it, but especially with the cap going up, it makes things a lot more flexible than say last year or the year before.
Yeah. I mean, it is going to be interesting. I don't think that there's going to be a lot happening. I think if the first two moves, I think the only two moves that I'm absolutely certain happen are Rasmus. And I think Rasmus is probably gone, and I think Blake Coleman is probably gone. I think
Yeah,
everything else is up in the air at this point. I just
yeah. Like if I had to rank like the odds of players getting dealt, like Anderson's probably 95%, Coleman's probably about 70, Kadri's 50-50, and like Huberdeau's like 20%.
the other guy I would toss on that list that might be pretty high up is I wonder about Joel Hanley being an option for some play. You
Oh
talk
yeah,
about players for depth defensemen. I think if the
oh
Flames
yeah.
weren't in a playoff situation last year, they would have traded Joel Hanley, and they probably would have got more than they should have for him.
Yeah,
And he
and they'll
didn't end up
probably
getting.
get more than they should have if they trade him at the trade deadline. And I wouldn't be
Yeah,
opposed to making that move either. And like you look at the Flames farm system, like there are a number of guys like Kuznetsov that are basically ready for the NHL and just need spots. And whether it's guys like Bean or Hanley that need to move on, like you need to start actually creating room for the young guys. And the only way to do that is via trade or let them walk as free agents.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, we all know what the score is at this point. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out when or what happens there.
Yeah, and to what extent?
Yeah, and all of a sudden they pull off 10 in a row and they're back in the playoff hunt. We're like, what the heck is going on here? But
And then we're like, oh, the middling Calgary Flames are back where they'll finish ninth, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So who knows? Like this team is consistently inconsistent, to put it
yeah,
mildly.
put him out. Yeah. Um, did we touch on everything? Was there anything else that we needed to? So this week, 3 games, homes versus it's all home, Blue
No,
Jackets.
2 at home, 1 on the road.
Oh, they play on the road in Minnesota. You're right.
Yeah.
Is yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a short trip to Minnesota and St. Louis before coming back.
Okay, so yeah, so 2 at home, Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks, Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks, and then on the road in Minnesota on Sunday. Do we see Devin Cooley this week?
I would assume so, and I would probably have him start either the Chicago or Minnesota game. They might not want to put him in at the home game, but I figure one of those two, he should get a start.
Yeah. Do we expect any emotion around the Columbus Blue Jacket game, or is
No, I feel like that,
that ship
like
was?
that was last year, and like how would you say, those feelings are always going to exist to some extent, but like it being as visceral as it was last year, no, I feel like it's a new year and next page.
Yeah, fair. All right. Well, let's leave it there. Tell everyone what's going on Fireside Chat.
We're recording every week. We'll be putting a show out next Monday, covering the 3 games and any assorted Flames news as it comes up. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, Henry Muse got hurt, one of the Flames prospects,
Yes.
and he's out for the year with a knee injury. So, yeah.
Rude.
So hopefully that doesn't derail him as a prospect because he was looking really good. And yeah, just you can just listen to us on firesidechat.ca and any place you get your podcasts.
For sure. So we talk Canucks on Sunday mornings live. We're going to try to do Monday nights for now for Flames. We're going to just kind of, with my schedule kind of is always up in the air in terms of work. So we're trying to commit to Monday nights or Tuesdays. We'll have to see depending on everything else. But you follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, and subscribe wherever you get your audio. There will be some podcasts I am uploading. Just had to wait for some things to change in terms of that, but that will be coming soon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. First of all, thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.